What's going on, San Antonio Spurs Nation? These are your 5 takeaways from the week of Spurs basketball, and what a week it was! And we're coming off a crazy high. We're 3-1 to start the season. The first game against the Charlotte Hornets was the only loss so far of the season. Now, really, it was just everybody was off. 20% from three. There was a lot of opening night jitters. We were down 35 points, somewhere early in the fourth quarter. Their vets just pretty much came out and killed us. Terry Rozier went off. For some reason, Gordon Hayward always has a great game against us. And then we went up against Indiana, and things started taking a different turn from here. The game was very exciting. A lot of people thought, okay, well, these are going to be the bottom two teams in the league, right? And I really like a lot of the players on the Indiana Pacer team. They got Naismith on there. I really like Benedict Mathurin coming into this season. Isaiah Jackson was one of my favorite picks in the draft 2 years ago. They got a lot of good players. I mean, obviously, Tyrese Halliburton. The Halliburton dilemma is one that still plagues the Spurs, atmosphere to this day. We chose Devin Vassell and over Tyrese Halliburton. Now, if you go back and watch my draft reaction, I was kind of on the Halliburton side too because I thought we needed to upgrade at point guard. And there's no wrong answer, Halliburton or Vassell. It's just whatever you like. Halliburton's a prototypical type point guard, very skilled, very high IQ. Obviously has a great shot. Devin Vassell, on the other hand, is going to be an athletic freak. 3 and D. He's putting on the size as we speak. We're starting to see him bulk up right now. So the dilemma of what the Spurs should have done at that pick, I think we should all lay it down to rest and just back up Devin Vassell at this point. Now, what's funny is that this guy on the screen, Jalen Smith, was actually drafted before Devin Vassell and Tyrese Halliburton by the Phoenix Suns. So imagine if Vassell was on the Phoenix Suns right now. Jesus. But they're a really good, exciting young team. It was a very high-scoring game. One of the highest scoring games so far in this young NBA season. We'll talk about that in a little while later. But Jakob had 13 made free throws. That was huge. They went to a Haka Jakob, and he was able to put the ball in the hole and keep them at bay because this was a tight game. Every free throw mattered. The Spurs only won by 3 points, as you can see, 137-134. Very high scoring game. And we can obviously call on Jay Rich, right? So call on Jay Rich if you need a bucket. He'll deliver it to you promptly. He was just going off in that game. He had 27 points against the Pacers. Benedict Mathurin coming off the bench for the Pacers had 26 also. So when we talk about the bench and how the bench is doing in a little while, it's very interesting to talk about the matchup in this game. It was pretty intense. Every play down the stretch mattered. And for a moment there, it was starting to feel like, a regular Spursy type way of blowing a game, the way that we've been doing it for the past 3 seasons, which has been being close at the very end and then just letting it slip away by either not making baskets or turning it over or making key defensive errors, right? Like that's what we've been doing. And that's how it was feeling at the end of this game. But man, Tre Jones was able to keep the ball in his hands at the right times, made the right free throws down the stretch, and really put the Spurs in a great position to take on this little road trip that we're on right now. So it started some really good juju walking away from this game, knowing that we didn't blow it, right? Because we had a little lead, and that we're able to make our free throws. When was the last time we felt comfortable being at the free throw line, towards the end of games? I'm pretty sure it was when Manu was there, or Tony or someone, not even Tony really, right? Manu hitting those clutch free throws. So what a great game to start this road trip. Then we went up to Philly, and man, we were all scared of Philly, weren't we, man? I was worried. I was worried that James Harden was going to go off. I was worried that Joel Embiid was going to be too much for us, which he kind of was. But let's get into the game a little bit. Before we do our 5 takeaways, right, we're talking about these games. Against Philadelphia, a lot of people were shocked that the Spurs were that the Spurs ended up winning this game, and I was one of them too. And I had to go back and rewatch it like 2 times, and I was just like, what happened? How did they put themselves in a position to win this game? And it was an extremely slow start. Okay, now that's the first piece of the puzzle to why this game was even close. There was 3 minutes into the game, and it was still 0-0, right? And no one scored a basket. Joel Embiid ended up scoring their first basket. We ended up putting in a free throw, but it took a while. If Philadelphia had come out firing, we would have been in a hole early because they're having troubles of their own figuring it out. But after that slow start kind of went away for both teams, we were matching them beat for beat, and it really exposed the confidence of this young group, and what they feel like they're capable of, and meeting up to a challenge. They're playing fast. I mean, that in that 76er game, I was seeing them score, in 5 seconds or less. Man, they were moving that ball up the floor, and it didn't stop. And that's something that continued into the next game. But the ball never regressed. Like there were never times where the ball was just getting pulled out, run a pick and roll or anything like that. It was just like move it up, 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 shoot it. And we're taking so many shots. Tre Jones did a great job closing out that game. Jeremy Sochan was unbelievable in stretches. Like there was these sequences. There might have been like 2 or 3 sequences in this game where Sochan was, impacting every play on both sides of the floor. And I think he ended up pulling a hammy, right? Because he was just kind of like he was going. I mean, Jeremy Sochan was blocking shots. He had a couple blocks on Joel Embiid. He had some nice rotations, and you can just see that Sochan started picking it up, and then we saw it kind of explode the next game, right, against Minnesota. But we were able to pull away in the fourth quarter, and we finished this game on a 27-7 run. I believe 27. We were just blowing them out of the water, and we were hitting big shot after big shot answer. Every time we thought that Philadelphia was going to be like, oh, okay, yeah, they got it. Let's put this young team away. Let's make a couple baskets. We would answer them. And then they went on a drought, and we were hitting everything. Tre Jones was hitting his floaters. Jakob Poeltl was being aggressive. Keldon Johnson, Lord, Keldon, geez. That dude is a monster right now. Devin Vassell, obviously, he's like averaging 20 points a game pretty much in this road trip. Gorgie Jang had a couple really, really nice passes. And I remember talking about this during the preseason, how like, man, this guy needs to play probably over Zach Collins. Zach Collins has been playing fine, but Gorgie Jang is doing something amazing. One, he's just big. He's literally, I don't know when the last time we just had like a big dude in the paint to affect shots, to just get easy rebounds. A little guy comes to drive at him. He just stands there. He bounces off of him, right? And it's just like he just picks up his hand. He gets easy blocks. He gets easy rebounds just by standing there. And he's extremely skilled, like intellectually, and he's able to move the ball. He was finding open shooter after open shooter in this Philadelphia game, and he's a real unsung hero in this game. I mean, there were plenty of unsung heroes besides the guys that were starting on the floor. Like this bench group is unbelievable, which we're going to talk in a little bit. But building off that Indiana game, it was close. It was a close game, came down to the wire, and to be able to flip the script, and instead of letting that game get close, like already in the next game, we took that fourth quarter and we spread that thing out, and we're just hitting bucket after bucket. Jesus, and we're doing it by committee, man. It was just so awesome to watch. Now, I'm not getting too overhyped. I'm not saying, oh my God, we're great and this is the best team or anything like that. No, man, but you have to appreciate the level of basketball that is being played with this young group. It's actually incredibly high, incredibly fast. Okay, we're going to talk about that here in a second. So great game against Philadelphia, and then we're able to take that one and make it into a 2-game win streak, right? Then we went to Minnesota last night, and we buzzsawed them, man. We put the hurt on them, and it wasn't even close. If I'm being honest, that's a revenge game for me. I'm always thinking about, I hate Minnesota. I'll just be honest. I'll spend the next 4 minutes here talking about how much I hate Minnesota right now. And it sucks to me. It kind of sucks that they have Slow-Mo and they have Bryn Forbes, a couple ex-Spurs on their squad, but I hate them for what they did last year. 2 times that we played, they ran up the score on us. Karl-Anthony Towns had his career high 60-point game against the Spurs last year when they were up by 30, like the whole fourth quarter. Literally did not need to play the whole fourth quarter. And he was in there going to work on our third and fourth string guys. It was embarrassing to watch. Like if you have any respect for the game, that's like an insult. If you have an IQ for the game, if you're a coach and another coach is doing that to you, letting his player go off, it's like you don't go and shake his hand after the game. It's like, dude, I would look at them and say, get the hell out of here. And I'm pretty sure Pop knows all about how that feels, right? Like Pop knows what happened last year. And then the next time we played, I don't know if you remember, Anthony Edwards tried to do the same thing and almost lost the game. It was actually a close game. They were up by like 10, 12 points. And then down the stretch in the fourth quarter, Anthony Edwards takes like two or three, four bad shots just trying to get to 50 points because he was close to 50. So he tried running up the score on us as well. So Minnesota did us dirty twice. And this game, to me, it was one of the most satisfying things I can watch. Karl Anthony Towns getting all mad, all the defense getting so angry at each other, just showing, exposing that coach that has no control over their teams. You know what? You know why? Because the coach would not let his player even be on the floor trying pulling that stuff off that they tried to pull off last year. So I mean, I digress. Like I said, I can talk about Minnesota and how much of a bag of crap, bag of turds that they all are for playing the way that they do. And I put that on the coach. I put that on everyone, literally everyone. Cat, Anthony Edwards, all of them. Yeah, great, talented players. But what have they done? What have they done? They got a great squad this year. They just added Rudy Gobert, and we were buzzsawing them all up and down the floor, outrunning them. It was a track meet. I mean, we were just gunning, blazing them, going past them. There was almost half the time that Rudy Gobert was out there, we were beating him down the floor. Someone was beating him down the floor. If it was Sochan, if it was Zach Collins, if it was Jakob, somebody was beating them down the floor, right? So we just put the pace on them. We turned up the heat on them, and we just blew them out of the water. So that was a really fun game for me to get to watch because Minnesota, that's what happens when the basketball gods are watching, right? And they don't like stuff like that. There's a right way to play this game, and there's a wrong way to play it. And Minnesota to me shows more of those tendencies of being a team that's not about winning, a little bit more selfish. They don't care about doing things the right way, and they leave a bad taste in your mouth, to be honest. We're going to dive into the 5 takeaways that I pulled out from this group of games, from this 3-1 start, and see if we can kind of figure out and start putting these pieces together. The first question, though, obviously, that we want to know is this for real? The Spurs just beat Philadelphia, who's supposed to be, one of the best teams in the East eventually. They just beat Minnesota, just whooped them, just buzzsawed them by 30 points. It wasn't even close. We were running them out of the gym. Is that something that we can look to continue, right? So is this, I would say yes, we are going to compete. Devin Vassell's for real. I try to tell you guys. Keldon Johnson is finally going to get all the touches in the world. I try to tell you guys that those are good things. Now, let me put into context these 2 wins. It's early. It's early. There's no reason to panic if you're on the other side of a 3-1 record or if you just beat these 2 teams. None of these teams looked particularly fluid, any good, any type of continuity from either of these teams. And that's because they're both fairly new. Philadelphia, they acquired some new pieces. They're trying to figure out still how, I guess, James Harden and Joel Embiid will coexist to put together a full 48-minute game. I don't think they figured that out in 3 games. They definitely have all the talent in the world. I mean, Embiid dropped 40 on us. Harden was pretty impressive. But as far as, where the Spurs are, the Spurs look like they've been playing together for about 3 years. I mean, that pace is fast. That ball is moving. The IQ of knowing where your teammates are is extremely high. Even with like Jeremy Sochan, just the way that these guys are able to find him. It's just someone that's completely new. And I think that's something that we're definitely showcasing right now is that at this point in the season, the Spurs are ready to go. There's no misstep. There's no mix communication of who's supposed to be getting what shots. Everybody's moving the ball. Everyone's taking good shots. Keldon is being selfish enough that I like. Devin Vassell also is being selfish enough where I think the rest of the team knows that they're the guys. And before it's always been like, well, who are the guys? Who are the real guys? Because we have like DeJounte and Derek who like been here the longest, Lonnie. But then we have these younger guys that are probably better than them. So whose turn is it, right? That's been a question. In these 2 games, we can pull out that these are great samples of how well the Spurs can play. Now, once the rest of the NBA starts catching up and starts building that continuity, somewhere mid-season towards the second half of the season when that one's closing out, that's going to be a good measuring test. Right now, it's just early. It's good to see that the Spurs that we don't suck. we don't suck. I think teams are now looking at us saying like, hey man, this team, they play quick, they play together, and they play hard, and they're defending, right? They're defending on a high level. The Spurs have been able to hold, I think, out of the last 12 quarters, they've been holding teams below 30, except for three of those quarters, right? So after that first game against Charlotte, where we gave up 30 plus points every single quarter against Charlotte, since then we've only done it, I think, about three times. So the Spurs are turning up the D as well. So I think it's not something you can't put the Spurs right now in the conversation of playoff, play in. Even then, I don't think so. It's too early, and the rest of the league needs to catch up. So enjoy this level of competition that you're seeing. Don't get overhyped. Don't be like, oh my gosh, we just beat, the two really good teams. Who's next, right? Who's next to get some of these hands, right? It's like, no, that's not where we should be at. But you should definitely be excited about the product that's on the floor. That is for real. The product that we're seeing on the floor is for real. Is it going to be good enough to beat some of the best teams in the league? We'll find out. We'll find out as the season progresses. Number two, identity. This thing is so obvious. Our identity is showcasing itself in spades over these first few games. Let's just look at these stats really quick. In pace, the Spurs are third, only behind Golden State and the Lakers. The miles per game, Spurs are third, only behind New York and Indiana. Average speed per game, dude, I mean, the San Antonio Spurs are blowing everyone else out of the water too at 4.5, right? So, I mean, they're playing with so much grit and so much tenacity all across the board. So let's put up some words on this word wall that describes the identity of this team, right? Boom, right? These guys are coming out ready to play, and they're coming out to win. You can tell, and these guys said it earlier on in the season that, that they're not scared and they're here to win. They're not here to lose games. Who's this Victor Wembanyama stuff? And you can tell these guys are ready to play, right? So they're coming with it. Everything makes sense. There's just so much about this team that makes so much sense to me. As before, where it's like, man, what are we doing? The athleticism is really showing itself in not just the pace, but the amount of attempts at the rim. We've had a couple alley oops already. Keldon and Devin and Tre Jones are aggressively seeking the paint. There's so much continuity with this team, even from I'm talking about the top 10 guys, even the bench unit down to the 10, 11th guy. They have great continuity. They're playing with such tenacity and aggression. That attitude and aggression kind of tie together. They're not scared. At the same time, they're humble. I think Coach Pop said that as well, is that they have this attitude about them, but they're also very humble. And I think the humbleness shows itself in how well they play together, right? There's a fluid to this team where it's, most teams take at least 20, 30 games to get this to get together like this, right? There's a dog in them. They're shooting lights out. They're taking a lot of threes. They're extremely versatile on defense. Like I was telling you, they're throwing these lineups out there that are big, small, whatever, and they're able to compete and stay in front of guys. And I was telling that to my wife. I'm like, a big difference between this year and last year, and just in these first few games, is that the Spurs are able to really stay in front of guys. I mean, really rotate, and be long enough and athletic enough. And a lot of that has to deal with Jeremy Sochan. There's some times where Jeremy Sochan is like on defense, and he's not particularly guarding his guy, and he's the only one. It's like where everyone's in man, and Sohan's just kind of like trusting his instincts all over the floor. He's like, yeah, my guy's over there, but I'm going to stay over here and do this. And he ends up getting like a block or a hand on a play, or great help side rotations that end up letting other teammates kind of make up and fill his spots. But he's just providing so much versatility on defense. The ball movement's been great. The shooting's been great. I mean, we've been shooting about 30 plus threes a game. We're hitting, I think we hit 17 in one of the games. We hit 13, 12, right? We're hitting plenty of threes right now. So the shooting is there, and it's in the starting unit. A lot of people are skeptic about that starting unit having Jakob as a non-shooter, Jeremy Sochan technically as a non-shooter, Tre Jones technically as a non-shooter. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, the spacing is going to be terrible." But have we seen the spacing be terrible? Not really. I mean, Keldon's been amazing. Devin, Trey, amazing. You know what I mean? So the reason why they're able to overcome that spacing issue is because the ball moves. The ball is moving, and they're not scared to put it on the floor and drive and attack, or the guys that are ready to shoot are hitting those shots. It's very impressive to see this identity just kind of show itself right out of the gate. All right, so kind of jumping on that point, Jeremy Sochan, the big takeaway here is, I remember talking about it, that a guy like Sochan has so much raw potential, so much raw talent, so much raw IQ, really the instincts, right? When he trusts his instincts on both ends of the floor, he's able to do some pretty impressive stuff. So game by game, he's been trending upwards, man. The hustle plays have been incredibly important to putting back missed shots, to catching alley oops, getting offensive rebounds, getting deflections on defense, extra help at the rim on defense. I've told you all that. It's a great fit with him and Jakob together. I mean, the defense at the rim goes up quite a bit, right? And he's just such a big body. He's a bigger body than Keldon, right? Because we call Keldon big body. But I mean, this guy is doing some amazing things with his length and athleticism, and we're starting to see it kind of come through game by game, right, with this kid. And against Minnesota, he scored like the first 4 or 6 points, and I think he finished with 9. But everything was aggressive to the rim. He's not afraid to shoot it, but his teammates are finding him. Hustle. This dude was beating everybody up the floor. I don't know how many times he beat Cat up the floor. And the Spurs, I'm telling you, were running a track meet on Minnesota last night. And Sochan even had that nice little catch, turnaround jump shot. I mean, the dude has so much game. Now, shout out to my followers on Instagram. They had a couple questions. I tried to find them and pull them up here. I couldn't do it, guys, but asking about, does he have offensive game that we're just not seeing? And the answer is yes, of course. All these guys do. But he knows, and he spoke with Matt Bonner after the game about, he knows where he's going to impact the game, and that's by bringing that energy and that hustle and that grit and just trying to impact it in all these little ways, right? So that's his goal right now. But as you can also see, the ball moves around plenty. He can find his open shots. They're going to present themselves to him if he wants to take them. But he's also a great passer, a very willing passer, can feed the post guy very well. And, so he's looking to Jakob and the other big guy whenever they're in the game together. So, just game by game, we're seeing a little bit more and a little bit more. But the main thing is that you can tell he's getting more comfortable. It was against the 76ers. I was watching that game, and he was getting to the rim and missing all his layups. I don't know if he even scored, right? I mean, that in that game, but there were more attempts at the rim, and they were bunnies. He was just missing bunny, 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 bunny. And you can tell that he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can get to the rim with ease. I can get up. I can get up here even at the NBA level." And then we saw in the next game after that against Minnesota, he just started putting him in the hole. He started dunking. He's like, "Why am I messing around trying to lay this stuff up? Let me just go and smash it on some people." And he was able to do that. It was very impressive to see. And you should be very excited about him being in the starting lineup. He doesn't play the most. He's not going to be there at the end of games, but he definitely does bring kind of that similar, characteristic that Keldon would bring his first year, and that's just providing that energy, creating extra plays, and things of that nature. All right, so I think I might have jumped over 4. All right, so this is 4, right? I know it says 5, but let's see how the Spurs are faring against the rest of the NBA. Right now, most assists in a single game. The Spurs are second to Utah with 37. I think this was the other night, man. It was just awesome ball movement, I'm telling you. Most points in a game. The Spurs are second, actually tied for first with Dallas at 137. Like I said, against Indiana. Indiana has 134. That was from the same game. So that was a very, very high-scoring game. Not a lot of defense in that game. A lot of transition buckets in that game. Assists per game. The Spurs in these first 4 games are first in the league with 30, and they had a couple really impressive nights moving that ball. Now, let's see where most of their shots are coming from. Let's see where most of the percentage of their shots are coming from. Let me get this back up here. Thank you. All right, so if you take a look at percentage of points off turnovers, We're 10th in the league. Now, this is big. This is a big deal. Okay, let me kind of bring myself back up here. Uh, would you guys agree with me that in the past we were able to create turnovers, but we weren't always able to finish on the other side? It was just missing layups and all that stuff, just bad shots, over rotations, over ball movement. There was just no killer instinct on anyone on the floor really in transition. And this year, that's not a problem. Like I said, we're 10th in the league right now of producing points off turnovers. We're 12th in the league of producing points off fast break opportunities. That's what I'm telling you. We are pushing this pace, and we're ready for it at the rim. 12th in the league in mid-range baskets, and then we're 15th in the league in points off three-point field goals. Um, Mid-range field goals, if we look off to the bottom right, Devin Vassell is first right now in the NBA in mid-range field goal percentage, um, at 72.7%. So I'm telling you, Devin Vassell is that guy. You can go through my channel. All right, so your final two takeaways from this set of games was, one, I'll keep this one short and sweet. Pop looks like he's having a great time, and you can definitely sense the urgency of teaching and coaching. And he spoke after the game how the game against Minnesota, how this young group actually needs him. He actually feels like these guys need them as a coaching staff, and as before, it wasn't so much the case. He had a little bit more veteran guys. Obviously, he spoke of when the big three were here. And so it's refreshing, and that he loves it. He loves teaching this game. And as a coach, I know exactly what he means. There's nothing like being on that floor at 6 in the morning and putting in that work and seeing it build over a season. It's nothing. There's nothing like it. It's a beautiful thing, and that makes me kind of think of Brett Brown here for a second. Here's a nice photo of him in Philly after the win. He went up to Joel Embiid. They kind of embraced each other. They have a relationship going back to the beginning of Joel's career, when Brett Brown was in charge of kind of the rebuilding phase of the Philadelphia 76ers, which makes me think, he's here for a reason. And I wouldn't be opposed to see Brett Brown take over this team in a year or two. I think Brett Brown has plenty of coaching left in him, and if Pop wants to step away, Brett Brown knows the system. He's dealt with a young developmental squad before, and where in Philadelphia, after the process period was over, they gave him like a year trial and then they kicked him out, right? Basically, of Philadelphia. And maybe that's part of the deal. If you're in that position as a coach, you have like a short window there. But maybe the Spurs are going to look to do him a little bit better and help turn this young rebuild into something that he can actually have the reins to for quite a long time. If Brett Brown is here for the next 10 years, I don't mind that. Do you? Do you think he's a good fit for this young budding team, maybe adding another few young players along the next few years? Let me know what you think. I think it's a great successor, scenario for Pop. Rather than seeing someone who's young and doesn't know too much, or someone like that. I really like Brett Brown in that position. So last takeaway from these games, where we are deeper than we expected. The production that Jay Rich alone is able to bring out on the floor on a game to game basis is enough. He's scoring more per night probably than most benches do in the NBA. Doug McDermott is in a great role coming off the bench, not starting at the 4 spot, and he's able to find shot after shot after shot. It's amazing the way that these guys are finding each other on the floor. This guy right here, I mean, Isaiah Roby, dude. I mean, Isaiah Roby. Did y'all see the way he played and came out to play against Minnesota? He hit like his first 2 or 3 baskets. He was moving the ball. He even got a rebound and brought it up himself, turned down a guard, say, I got it, I'll bring it up. He was playing with his extra swagger last night. I have no idea where it came from, but I mean, I know that Isaiah Roby's a very skilled guy, a skilled player, but last night it showed. And then, Josh Primo, we all know what he can do, and if he's going to be able to bring it consistently is the question. There's been nights where he looks really good off that bench, and then there's nights where he's going to have to put it together. But still young season. Let's just see what we can do with this bench unit. It's pretty deep, all right? So if we want to know how deep, well, so far in this short season, the Spurs have outscored, or in the last 3 games, they have outscored the other opponent's bench except for the Pacers, right? The Pacers just went nuts. Their bench was just crazy. But against the 76ers, and we blew them out 40-10. Against the T-Wolves last night, we had the edge on them by 8 points, 38-30. So this bench is amazing. It's awesome the way that they're able to play, gel, and nothing. We're not skipping any beats here. We're not skipping any beats. That ball's moving. We're subbing in, subbing out guys. Sometimes you get Tre and Primo on the floor together, and it doesn't look too bad. I think that's a work in progress, but it doesn't look too bad. And we're seeing a lot of different lineups out there, but the versatility of this bench. We didn't even see Keita Bates play against Minnesota, and I think that's probably because we're going to see him play against Minnesota in the next two matchups that we have coming up in this short week against the Timberwolves. But those were your 5 takeaways from this game. Let me know what you guys think are the big takeaways from this set of games, and let me know how you feel about this Spurs team moving forward and into the future. I feel like I forgot one thing, and I want to say Tre Jones. He should have his own takeaway on this thing. Is he's been balling. He's showing incredible point guard IQ, knowing when the game needs to be sped up. Man, against the Timberwolves and against the 76ers, it was Tre Jones. It was Tre Jones who was able to keep the foot on the neck of these two teams. Like the Spurs late in the fourth against the 76ers, it was a close game. And then Tre Jones was just like, bro, I'm turning on the jets. And he was just keeping the pace, finding open shooters, getting to the rim, beating defenses down the floor. I mean, we look in shape. Against Indiana, we look pretty tired. But in these last two games, we look in great shape. And Tre Jones is the head of that snake of being able to keep this pace alive. And against Minnesota, I mean, he was unbelievable. He had a three, he had a couple nice drives to the basket, he had a couple steals. I mean, this guy was just pushing the rock. And against Minnesota, his hometown as well, for Tre Jones, he had a great game. You know what I'm saying? So Tre Jones is really the one, if you're paying close attention to controlling how this team runs and the pace it plays with, and it's been awesome to watch. Right, great. The last takeaway is just that these have been a great set of games. Right, even that loss against Charlotte, you knew it was kind of you're hoping maybe it was going to be a singularity of just bad jitters, bad shooting, all that stuff. Veterans on the other squad that were just ready to play in Charlotte, and then these next 3 games. Man, dude, I mean, it's been the most fun basketball I've seen in the silver and black in about 4 years, right? So I'm very excited just to see the product on the floor and see how they fare and how they develop. And we can win some games, great. If we can get into the play-in, wonderful. But we'll find out soon, won't we? All right. It's going to be a great year. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to these videos and to the channel. Appreciate you guys. Let's catch you guys on the next episode. I've been Coach Rob Trejo Jr. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at SpursTubeTv. I'll catch you on the next one.